Welcome to Leadership Reimagined on Krawcheck, where game-changing conversations are reshaping the world of work. Here's your host, Janice Ellig.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Janice Ellig, CEO and founder of Ellig Group, Executive Search Advisors, where we are reimagining search. I am very excited to welcome our special guest, Sallie Krawcheck, CEO and co-founder of Ellevest, an online financial advisor for women. She is also owner and chair of Ellevest Network, an outstanding leader who has been called the most powerful women on Wall Street. Sallie is a game changer in so many respects, and we are pleased to have her speak on a subject where she is driving change. Money is power, closing the money-gender gap. We will hear Sallie's remarkable story and advice on how she is closing that money gap for women and why it is so important to her personally and professionally. To start the year, we want our audience to look at their 2019 resolutions to ensure that they include Sallie's tips on financial independence, because having financial independence brings financial well-being. And particularly that is important for women because that means having choices, which means it enhances their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So there's much to cover and so much to learn from Sallie. So let's jump right in. Sallie, you started on Wall Street as an analyst because your high school teacher told you your SAT scores were off the charts. And you became a director of research on Wall Street. And then you catapulted you became CEO on the sell side at Sanford Bernstein. I'm going to tell a few firsts about you because you gained a reputation for impartial advice and the decision to take Bernstein out of the conflicted underwriting business that resulted you being on the cover of Fortune magazine, calling you the last honest analyst. Great cover, great cover. And when Citibank saw that, and they came under criticism and charges by then Attorney General Eliot Spitzer, you were handpicked by Sandy Weill to be CEO of the newly formed Smith Barney unit, separating brokerage and research from investment banking. And then in 2004, you became CFO of Citibank, and we're number 7 on the world's most powerful women list. And you continue to make multiple lists. In 2007, you became CEO of the city's wealth management unit, which included the private bank. I'm going to stop there, Sallie, because there are so many other firsts. Tell me about some of this path that you had on Wall Street, some of the obstacles you faced, some of the things that you had to do to get ahead there.
Work hard. I had to work hard. I had to take calculated but big risks, and I had to get lucky, to be perfectly frank. I never planned it. I never said, oh my gosh, I'll be a research analyst and then, I'll take us out of the conflicted investment banking business just when the internet bubble is going to burst and just when it's going to be clear that the conflicts were there. So there was some degree of luck there. Janice, we're in a moment right now when so many people are talking about Me Too and Time's Up and the challenges of being a woman or a person of color or a minority in an overwhelming majority. And of course, Wall Street is, 90%, of traders are men, 90% of mutual fund managers are men, 86% of financial advisors are men. And I can tell those stories over a couple glasses of wine for hours at night. But I do think I had in some ways an advantage, which is I stood out. And if my work was good, you couldn't forget me. Because even if you couldn't remember my name, it was that, what about that woman? And so when my research was strong, rather than being one of 14 men who people were, oh, who's that guy who put out that research? It's, oh, that woman, right? And I firmly believe I wouldn't have been on the cover of Fortune magazine if we hadn't taken a big business bet to take us out of underwriting that had paid off. But perhaps also if I had not stood out as much, if I had not been a woman. So when people say to me, did being a woman in business help you or hurt you? My answer is yes.
So, but Sandy Weil noticed you.
Mm-hmm.
There were charges against Citibank. You had spoken up. You were on the cover of Fortune. So, yes, you stood out, but you had courage.
Oh, or foolhardy. And then he put me onto, as we know, the glass cliff, right? He said, go out there. Smith Barney is in trouble. Sallie, try to turn it around.
Right.
And there's a lot of research done around, people of difference being given opportunities to turn things around when they otherwise wouldn't have. Let me put it another way. If I had started as a trainee at Smith Barney, I never would have been the CEO just because of the culture there that had built up over time. But by taking some risks and having them pay off, it became, a clear enough bet for Sandy to take me from running Smith Barney, which, I think I was managing 350 people at the time, to managing Smith Barney, which was 35,000 people, and to try to turn that around.
That's a real stretch.
Yeah, it wasn't, Janice, because what I told myself at the time is at 350 people, you don't know them all anyway. So, you're just more people you don't know. And of course the complexity stepped up, but it was just running and turning around a business on a bigger scale. It wasn't a, completely different job. It was just beginning to, sort of adjust for the scale.
What would you say to women who are given that opportunity? And at first you turned Sandy down, didn't you?
Well, and I don't even, I'll have a slight tweak there. Maybe I was or wasn't up for the job, right? But I was, I'd been around for enough years that I knew I was as up for the job as anybody. I wasn't 1,000% certain I could do it, but when I looked around, I said, okay, these gentlemen, I don't see anyone who's that much smarter than me. Oh, that guy's smarter than me, and that guy's not as smart as me. But I sure don't see anybody who works less, works more than I do. So I can, if I'm smart enough, and I'll take a risk, right, and I'll work hard enough, then my chances of turning it around aren't 100% by any means, and maybe they're only 30%. But I'm going to take this job, and I always keep in the back of my mind. I remember I actually spoke to a friend of mine before I took it and laid all of this out for her, and I said, "What do you think I should do?" And she said, "Don't take the job." And I remember, I was like, no, I was just laying this out for you to be polite. Because of course you regret on your deathbed what you didn't do, not what you did. And I figured, all right, my upside is I turn this iconic business around. No, not many people have had the opportunity to run this kind of business. No women. Or I fail publicly. Okay, I can take that upside downside.
And you succeeded.
And I succeeded.
And you went on then to run the next business.
Right. I went on to become CFO of Citigroup, and then went on to run the wealth management business of Citi, including also the private bank. So there was a good run there for a while, Janice.
But you go on to Bank of America Merrill Lynch, right? And you have a run there for a while.
Yeah, and that was an interesting one. And I made a lot of mistakes there. I got a call from Ken Lewis, the CEO at the time. He had called Sandy and said, look, we bought Merrill Lynch, a lot like Smith Barney. The attrition rate when they called me was running in excess of 50%. So the financial advisors are streaming out of here. And Ken said, Sandy tells me you can turn this around. And I said, put me in, coach.
Exactly. And so now, Ellevest, now this is a new venture, right?
Yeah, so so exciting.
And you bought 85 Broads. Yeah. Start at the beginning there. What made you do this?
After Bank of America, I did have the opportunity to go back into big companies. The business results had been good. And I think I even talked to you at the time, is it something I should do? And I thought, I don't know, two strikes, I don't know about trying to go for a third. I almost went into government, almost became a regulator for a period there. And then just okay, deep breath, sit back. What matters to me? What matters? And where can I take these unbelievable experiences I've had and actually make a difference? And make a difference, Janice, that other people probably can't make. Is there something I can do that others can't? And I became, very involved in thinking about how to help advance women. It really started, by the way, because it struck me that if we'd had more diversity on Wall Street of all kinds, the crisis might not have been as bad as it was. And I'm talking cognitive diversity because I was at those tables. And we just weren't circling through and cycling through enough scenarios and enough ideas about what could happen. We had lack of cognitive diversity, so we just didn't think broadly enough. And the research says cognitive diversity increases with gender diversity, racial diversity, and background and education and blah, blah, blah. So I really started to get involved in it there. So I did buy a professional women's network at the time named 85 Broads, now Elevate Network, which helps women advance in business. Okay. But then, one morning I am putting on my mascara and it strikes me in sort of this life-changing moment that, you know what, son of a gun, we women have less money than men do. The retirement savings crisis in this country is actually a gender crisis because 80% of women die single, but we retire with 2/3 the money of men. And we can work on the pay gap, which, by the way, isn't budging. But hold on a second. Hold on. There's a gender investing gap that at the time nobody was talking about whatsoever. In fact, I Googled it. There was nothing. But it cost a woman making, call it $85,000 a year, $1 million over the course of her life. Right? And so I thought, holy son of a gun. All right, we got a bunch of folks working on that gender pay gap, but I need to work on this one over here. Now, before I'd had this concept, a number of people had said to me, Sallie, why don't you start a wealth management business for women or an investing business for women? And I thought, or said, that is so condescending. Women do not need our own thing. How dare you? It's going to be some remedial financial education, dumbed down. I can't believe I thought this, but having been brought up in the rough, tough Wall Street environment for women, all those women's initiatives were marketing initiatives that were you go girl and don't buy those shoes, invest it in the market. Don't be a Carrie, be a Miranda and all just marketing. And I thought, what if instead of, here's an idea. What if instead of marketing to women, which is what the industry has been doing, we speak with women? And what if we don't make the assumption that the underlying product works for us and that it's just a marketing problem? What if we speak to women and then open ourselves up to changing the underlying product? And what we found are a few things. We found that for many women, those majority male financial advisors, they're not connecting with them as well, particularly for younger women. If that average age for that financial advisor is 60 and she's a 38-year-old woman doing well, she's like, I'm not feeling like we're talking about the same things. But even for a woman, going to an online offering where we found she's thinking, gosh, I'd love to buy a home in a few years. Can I invest to do that? I'd love to travel around the world. I'd love to have a retirement that, is a real badass retirement. And then she goes into one of the online providers and what she's being offered is an ETF or a mutual fund. And so she's speaking goals and they're speaking financial products. And so we found this sort of vast mismatch between what the industry was providing and what women were looking for that was right in front of your face. But the big firms, probably again, because of lack of diversity, weren't seeing and were trying to solve by badgering her to change.
And most of the advisors being men and most of the fund managers being men?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay.
And the numbers are, once you dig into them, are astonishing. So one number. So first of all, male clients of financial advisors stay with their financial advisor. I know a lot of these personal finance magazines are all like, oh, financial advisors, you terrible, blah, blah. No, males love them. Their attrition rate is a single-digit % in any given year. They just stay with them until they die. And in the year after her husband's death, women leave that same financial advisor at a rate of 80 to 90%.
Amazing.
80 to 90%. And so what you have when you step back, right, and you look at it, you have a business that works super well for men and really badly for women. And I get it. Like all men aren't the same and all women aren't the same and all that. Yeah, these are just the numbers, right? Everybody's different. We embrace all that, but that's just the numbers.
So the investment needs for women are different than they are for men, generally speaking?
I might say the investment wants for women are different from men. And
I've hit on longevity.
That's right. I've hit on it a little bit. Women tend to think about investing not as an activity that they enjoy doing in a vacuum. Oh, I mean, how many times, Janice, have you been out for drinks with a girlfriend and she says, I have got to get home to watch CNBC, Janice. I apologize, but got to get home, right? It's not something we do. The guy, right? It's just not in our DNA. So what we tend to see investing as a means to an end rather than a discrete activity that we're looking to overtake. So what you hear more is, we hear all the time is, you do that, Sallie, right? I need someone I can trust, a fiduciary who can help me identify my goals, quantify my goals, and then be a fiduciary, put my best interest, first and get me there. And Sallie, if you and Ellevest want to do it with an ETF, go girl. But I really don't want to spend a whole bunch of time with you debating the merits of a mutual fund versus an ETF. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on the phone with you talking about how the euro just outperformed versus the yen and how we think we should position my portfolio. Like, no interest whatsoever. What I want is for me, we'll call her L, to do what I do. I want to go to work and kill it at work. And I want to dream about the beach house. And I want to raise my family. And I want to dream about a great retirement. I want you to then give me the means to get there, right? I'll do my side. I'm earning my salary and I'll put in the recurring deposits and I'll tell you if things change. But I need you to do what you do and I'll do what I do.
And Sallie, let's talk again about what women need. And you published a book, Own It, right? And you have some wonderful tips in the book, and it's a career playbook, a new era for feminism and new rules for professional success. And it plays to women's strengths. And you say the power they already have. It's not about empowering women or giving power to women. It's what they already have. And these are the rules to be the next Sallie Krawcheck.
I don't think anybody wants to be the next Sallie Krawcheck, Janice, I think.
But it's the rules, too, about having power about money.
Yeah, so I think a few things. I have so many thoughts here because my thinking is moving and shifting, and I'm learning a lot. So first of all, you've hit the nail on the head. In a capitalist society, money is power. Men have more money than women. We will not be fully equal with men until we are financially equal with men. I know that's very brash. If people are listening, that's a very New York thing to say, but that's just the truth. And every one of us knows that if those actresses had had as much money and power as Harvey Weinstein, he could not have preyed on them. And it's not really, and so my goal is not really to make every woman financially independent, but what you're seeing for the women who are able to speak about their Me Too experiences, joining Time's Up, is for many of them, they were financially stable, right? So a Susan Fowler, who really completely changed Uber through her exposure of that then toxic culture, she wasn't financially independent, but she could go get another job, right, as an engineer. And so my, mission is to help us women become financially stable. Money is power. So that's worth doing. The second thing that I would say is I think all of us need to give thought to how much of the career advice we believed in before was dead wrong. I pause for effect. Dead wrong, right? That, I would go to the Fortune Most Powerful Conference. How did you do it, Susie? How did you do it, Amy? How did you do it, Lizzie? How did you do it? And we gave this advice as if we had the answer, when in fact, some of it was just, what I should have said is, well, here's how I was successful. I never worked for Harvey Weinstein, and I never worked for Les Moonves, and I never worked for Steve Wynn, and I never worked for, right? I mean, there's some degree of good fortune that, women who worked just as hard as we did got that terrible dumb luck. And actually, the more corrosive part of it is not, I worked for Les Moonves. The more corrosive part is I worked for a super nice guy. He is just the best. And then he promoted Steve. And then he promoted Jim. And then he promoted Joe. And then I never could get the promotion, but gosh, he's a nice guy with, a lovely wife who stays at home and bakes, and so it really is more, the big tax on our economy is wonderful individuals who've been brought up believing that men should men should be leaders. So where my thinking is going today is, look, we bring these great qualities to work. Rather than trying to act like men at work, as so much advice had been, bring them, right? Bring our relationship orientation, bring our risk awareness to work, bring our mission, our drive for mission, and recognize that for years and years and years, Janice, we as women were separated in the workforce. That we all were told we should do this on our own. We should essentially act like the guys. And it weakened us. And I knew at Citi that when we go to the offsites and there was a clump of guys and there was a clump of women, I went right to the clump of guys for two reasons. One, that's where the power is. And two, to compete for the next job, because there were only 2 seats at the table for women. I wasn't competing with the guys. They could help me. I was competing with the women, right? And the crazy, crazy part of this is women make up today more than half the workforce. We direct 85% of consumer spending, and we control $7 trillion of investable assets. But somehow we got convinced that we were weak, and we had to play the game the guys' way against each other.
So we're the majority, but we're the minority at the top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we still don't have the voice and the power in those positions, and are not making the money still, right? And so men control the power and they control the money. And you're trying to get women with the money.
More money.
More money.
And look, I think also I'm having this conversation 3 times a week over drinks at dinner parties, et cetera. And you've been part of them, that what women on Wall Street are starting to say, and women certainly in Silicon Valley are saying, we're the senior women. To some extent, if I had 4 glasses of wine, we were complicit in the, continuation of this unequal work environment. We were. We didn't know it at the time. We didn't think it at the time. We didn't mean it at the time. What do we do now? What do we do now? Right? What do we do now? Do we, and what you're seeing is a lot of women, okay, I've really got to help bring other women up. Or in some cases, and you're seeing this happen quite a bit, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start something that can make a difference. And so for us at Ellevest, not only are we working to get women more money, but our employee base is 2/3 women, 40% people of color. And so we're making sure that it is an inclusive company that reflects our modern world, as opposed to reflects I'm doing finger quotes now, meritocracy, which isn't a meritocracy on Wall Street.
So as you know, in search and what we do with the Breakfast of Corporate Champions through the Women's Forum is to try and get CEOs to put more women in the C-suite and more women in the boardroom, right? And because that's power.
Yes.
So you and I are aligned by getting more women in those positions, because then you have more money. And with you're trying to get women to invest better so that they will have the money. And if they have the money, they have the power, they have the voice. So what do you say to women with regard to Ellevest? How can they get more money invested, have that power, and therefore say yes, as you did to when you went into your positions? I'll take it, but I need to have the right money. Right. And when I'm calling them to say, yes, I can do that job, and I will do it at the right money level. What's your advice to women, and how can they get to you and Ellevest?
So I'd say a couple of things. Obviously, of course, my first piece of advice is to invest. We can't change that gender pay gap overnight, but by the typical woman today keeps the substantial majority of her money in cash, and the typical man does not. And so just apples to apples on how much money they're making by investing. And I'm not talking crazy. I'm not, buy just Amazon or, try to pick up Apple at the bottom. I'm talking a diversified investment portfolio that we believe will earn about 6% in good markets and down markets. Investing 10, 15% of your take-home pay into such a portfolio. If you can't start with that, start with 1%, right? And by doing that at a company that you trust, beginning to build that wealth. And by the way, the stock market, I talk about a 6% return. The stock market since 1928 has had a 9.5% annualized return. And that includes last year, which was no fun, and includes the whole depression and the 87 crash. And so that makes a real difference in someone's lives, right? As mentioned, it can be $1 million. So that's an easy one. That's one we control, and we can do it, and we should do it today, right? In fact, for that same $1 million, the cost per day of how much that gender investing gap costs that woman is $100. And so I would just urge your, listeners, just have $100, just take $100, throw it on the floor, right? If you're not going to start investing today, and tomorrow, if you don't, throw it on the floor again and then start throwing it out the window and just rip it up and then burn it in your fireplace, because that's what you're doing. And unfortunately, we don't see that sense of urgency.
How do women come to you?
Yes.
How do they get to you? How do they find you? What do they do if they want to
question.
Contact Ellevest?
So our site is ellevest.com, ELLEVEST.com. If you want to come right to me, my email is Sallie, SALLIE, @ellevest.com. And Janice, the wonderful thing about Ellevest, because the investing industry has been so exclusive for so long. You have to know a guy who knows a guy. You have to have a $250,000 minimum, which, by the way, has, kept women and people of color out because we don't have as much money as the guys. So what we've done, which is really exciting, is there is no minimum for investing. And so you can invest, ladies and gentlemen, from your first penny. Pay off your credit card debt first, please. But, and then the emails I get, Janice, often, several times a week of, Dear Sallie, I'm first generation. I just finished college. My parents don't speak English. I just invested my first $10 and I cried because I feel like I'm beginning to, go after the American dream. And then Janice, I really expected when we started this business that it was going to be for these, what the industry calls mass affluent women. Guess what? We had women of means call us and say, I want to be part of this. I'm tired of being in this exclusive thing. Given what's going on in this world, I want to be inclusive. And so we also have an offering for wealthier women at Ellevest, and you can get to it again through the same website. But what's exciting about that, Janice, is that what many of these women are looking for are investments that invest in other women. They're saying, I want to, as I'm thinking about where to put my X hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions of dollars, whatever it is, sure, I'll go, sure, we'll go into that mutual fund or alternative or index fund. But what women are loving is, well, what about this investment that invest in women primarily of color in urban areas who are opening small businesses, who, by the way, pay back these loans? Or women who are starting businesses, or women who have got successful businesses but are having trouble getting loans from the banks because of these leftover, gender perspectives. And it's called gender lens investing. I know it seems dumb. When I first started about it, I'm like, that is so dumb. But you know what? We're all investing in a gender today. The gender's men. Mm-hmm. And so what women are beginning to look to do is, can I diversify into investing in women, where frankly, the research would tell you can get better returns and feel like I'm having an impact, and giving back in a way, though getting that competitive return because I've been successful.
And Sallie, people can also sign up for your publication. Is that
yes.
right?
So if you go to the same website, I write a weekly newsletter. It is me. I write it Sunday morning, cup of coffee. It's about the markets often. It's also about issues that we as women are tackling as well, all around the issues, anything women and money. Women, money, and sort of power is fair game. We have a lot of men a lot of our allies who are part of the newsletter, a lot of our allies who invest with us, by the way, because we're not women only, we're just women, first. But for a while, my team did say to me for a while, as we were going through some of these political issues, that it was becoming, there every few weeks, it was a cry from Sallie's heart. It's okay, I'll tone that down a little bit. Forget about Democrat, Republican. I'm just for more women.
Well, you are, and you really are closing the gender gap on money for women, and I really commend you. Is there anything else you want to tell our audience? Any closing comments?
Well, I'm just so glad that you're doing this, Janice, and I'm so glad to be part of it. And look, what I would say is we've all got an opportunity to change this world, and we are now having some really important cultural wars where. And particularly, on gender issues where women have spoken up and they've been supported or they haven't been believed and there's been a backlash to it. What I would say is it's wrenching. It is wrenching. Here's the thing. Getting more money into the hands of women is not good for women and bad for men. It is good for women and it's good for men. That when women have more money, the economy grows. The money goes into the market, so the markets are healthier. Our society moderates. Their families are better off. The retirement savings gap closes. It's all good. There is nothing bad that happens. And I think we get so into this concept that the pie can only be so big. The pie can grow. And the way for the pie to grow is for women whose participation in the workforce has been declining to go back up, and for women to begin investing and managing their money so that they're creating more wealth. So this is good. There's rare you find a good. This is a good. It is. I'm going to be doing this till I fall down out of exhaustion.
Well, I'm going to be doing it with you.
Good.
And putting more women on boards and in the C-suite and making equality for women and diverse candidates much better and equality for all. So in closing, thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Money is Power, Closing the Money Gender Gap with Sallie Krawcheck, the last honest person in Wall Street. I agree. Truth to power. Today, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or visit our website at ellegroup.com. Stay tuned for more episodes of Leadership Reimagined, where we will have other outstanding speakers. Again, these episodes are released on the third Thursday of every month. I hope you've enjoyed this show with Sallie Krawcheck, and I look forward to speaking with other outstanding leaders in the months to come. Thank you all for tuning in.